Steve Pereira has spent over 2 decades improving the flow of work across organizations. He's worked through tech support, IT management, build and release engineering, and as a founding CTO for enterprise software as a service. He serves as lead consultant for Visible Value Stream Consulting, as a board of advisor to the Value Stream Management Consortium, chair of the OASIS Value Stream Management Interoperability Technical Committee, and co-founder of the Flow Collective to bring flow-focused professionals together. Since 2017, he has been developing and facilitating flow engineering to make flow improvement in large organizations accessible, collaborative, and actionable. This is my pleasure to have Steve today in our podcast. Let's start. Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you also. As I told you offline, we look like twins. But of course, we have different view on value streams, and that's the reason why we are talking today together. And I really thank you for having some time for me and accepting my invitation. That's really my pleasure and an honor to talk to you, because you are one of the, I would say, known and deserved expert in value streams, which is in fact, of course, the main topic of this podcast.
Very pleased to be here.
Yeah, I would like to start and jumping into the topic directly, if you don't mind. As I said, we talk about value stream, okay? And when we talk about value stream, you know, for IT service management practitioners, I am one of them. This concept is still quite, unclear. And when we talk about value streams, there are different, let's say, frameworks, different approach on value stream. And what is the positioning of an IT value stream, if we can say IT value stream in an organization? How we can recognize that we have now in front of us a value stream?
It's a great question, thanks. And I think it's something that we're continue to work on, because there's a lot of folks coming to this concept of value streams from different domains and different areas of experience. And it can be hard to recognize a value stream in the chaos and complexity of organizations. So trying to think about consistent workflows in spaces where work seems inconsistent or chaotic or highly parallelized or interconnected, interdependent, can be quite a challenge. And what I would say to folks is that value streams may exist in some small way in organizations in your current state. You're getting work done, and the flow of that work is well suited to a model of value streams because there's a customer, right? If there's value being produced, there's a customer. And it's helpful to think of that work as a value stream because it gives you a frame of reference for improvement, optimization, innovation, maximizing creativity, minimizing waste. There's a lot of benefits, right? Measurability is another huge one. Visibility is another huge one. And it can be hard to start from where you are because of the complexity of not having that as a frame of reference and not thinking in that way. But specifically to your point, in terms of IT, what do we see in IT? We see a lot of repetition along with innovation or variation, right? We see development in new areas. We see technical debt repayment. We see partnerships. We see a lot of varied work, right? There's not a lot of consistency in a lot of organizations. But that doesn't mean that we can't identify standard work or aim to standardize work to create more consistency, to create stronger structures around work. That means that we can more readily identify waste, more readily improve that process in the flow, measure, and collaborate more effectively. So in IT organizations that aren't currently using the model of value streams to think about work, it can be very hard to measure things that matter, because without a customer focus or without any consistency, how do you improve? How do you really know that what you're doing is working? And how are you identifying waste? How do you even know what waste is if it's not in the context of a customer and in the context of value? So what we see are things like incident response, that can be very consistent, right? Can be very practiced, can be a very operationalized activity. And in a lot of organizations that are adopting value streams, they're confronted with these, as you mentioned, these models that say, these are development value streams, these are operational value streams, these are business value streams, these are customer value streams. I don't think any of that's really helpful. At the end of the day, I think it can be maybe a valuable starting point, but you quickly run into situations where value streams are just sitting along a spectrum of all of these aspects, right? There's a spectrum of proximity to customer, the external customer or the internal customer, right? And all your value streams will fall somewhere on that spectrum, and they can move. So putting them into a bucket can be very constraining. Likewise, they can move between developmental activities and operational activities, back and forth. They don't live their entire lives in one area or another, unless they're not improving or developing or adapting or changing over time, which they are, right? Or they should be. So I think when we're talking about IT value streams, I would say that most of them tend to be highly operational, but there are opportunities for development and developmental activities inside of those value streams. Particularly today, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, right? This has not been operationalized yet. It's highly volatile, highly novel, and it's developing rapidly. So it's all of your value streams are shifting more developmentally, right? They're moving away from operational consistency, and that's okay. What's important is that you recognize that and you intentionally start to measure different things, you start to behave differently. And if you're thinking of value streams in a spectrum of what they're doing, how they're behaving, that can help you measure the right things, have the right conversations, make the right decisions, and use value streams to your advantage rather than trying to put them in buckets and then struggle when they're bumping up against the walls of the bucket.
That's interesting view, because I think that's exactly one of the main, I would say, struggle of many, as I said, IT service management practitioners, because they come from this word, and I come from this word of operations, where stability is the key, where processes are the rules, and where a customer is your judge of peace. So I think that I like the idea of these different, spectrum of interaction with the customers. And you were mentioning AI. Let's talk about AI. When we talk about value stream and value stream management, what is what can be for you the contribution of AI to value stream, or generally speaking, to value stream management?
I think I have a lot of speculation. I have a lot of ideas of how it can be used. I'm excited about a lot of things. I think that, you know, let me tell you a story. I recently started to apply AI to video transcripts because I like, taking my own notes, but I'm, very aware that I can miss things and I can be focused on, trying to capture certain types of information. And in the future, I might want to go back and look for different information, or I'm conscious of the fact that I might miss something. And I also like to focus on the conversation rather than taking notes. So I've started to use AI meeting assistants to capture transcripts and pull out insights and hold me accountable for things that I say that I'm going to do. They're great at pulling out action items, but they don't do a great job currently of really understanding what's very meaningful to humans, specifically with a specific frame of reference or a specific goal for the meeting. The AI bots don't necessarily pick up on the goals of the meeting and then try to frame everything in the context of the goals. They will do that, but they can be very effective for condensing and summarizing information. And I think that could be very helpful in wrangling the complexity of an organization, right? We have in a lot of organizations that don't have very mature value stream structures, very consistent workflows, standard, non-standard work, efforts behind variability, and automation. Everything can be kind of intertwined and interconnected, and it can be hard to tease that out, especially if you have limited experience. So an AI could do, I think, a reasonable job disentangling, simplifying, parsing, and processing that information to give you a representation of your organization as value streams that you can work from. And you could say, well, this doesn't quite seem accurate, but I know that, these two organizations are distinct teams and I can separate them, and, we could get something close to a representation of the organization that's useful. So there's the value stream network, which I think can be an interesting application, generating a representation, a digital twin, if you will, of the organization, and then helping to trace the digital thread of activity and information from initiation to delivery, right? Or concept to cash, or whatever it is. Of course, you're going to have AI agents performing work within the value streams as well, which provides an opportunity to get rid of repetitive, monotonous activity that unlocks more creativity or frees up time to be spent on more valuable human-centric work. And then, we have the struggle of measurement across multiple systems, trying to map things. We're very good at kind of doing that work in our heads, maybe to a small degree. But when it comes time to mapping, a task over here is called a work item over here, and it's called a story over here, but then it gets split out into these mini action items. But all those things are related, and there's a thread that runs through them, and sometimes there's gaps, and sometimes people forget to close things. I think, AI can help us do that work, which nobody wants to do, right? Nobody really wants to go through that tedium of maintaining and establishing the digital threads across the organization. Even if AI is just pointing out the gaps or where, the thread is broken, that could be very helpful to us. And then, of course, generating code for integrations, to pull in data, to wrangle data, to create connections with new applications. That could be very helpful because that's really hard work in a lot of organizations.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Do you think, for instance, because when we talk about value stream, we have a trigger, a demand, or any solicitation, we can say it like that. And we have, at the end of the day, some outcomes that lead to value. Do you think that AI can really help us measuring these outcomes, which is a real challenge, by the way, because many organizations talk about outputs, talk about IT outputs, talk about outputs and compare the outputs with the amount of money they spend on IT. But there are very few that talk about what are the real business outcomes that they get from that money. Do you think AI can help us measuring these business outcomes?
I certainly do. I really think that humans we're really bad at large data sets and correlation, right? We have a lot of bias that, people talk a lot about bias being injected into AI. I think humans will always have, an order of magnitude more bias and more problematic bias than AI ever will. Because we can't just edit our source code, right? We can't just improve our cognitive models and our pattern matching abilities, but AI can and it will. And there's going to be an incredible development there. So, what you're getting at, I think, is a very, very important missing capability in organizations. And people are very, really bad at this idea of correlating, action to result, right? Action to outcome. And even more so, kind of intention and hypothesis to outcomes and second order effects, right? I mean, these are things that are just beyond the capabilities of almost anyone, and certainly anyone I've ever met. And but this is not a challenge for AI, right? I mean, it in the fullness of time, we're talking 5-10 years down the road. By the time these capabilities are integrated into most organizations, they'll be so advanced that even asking the AI, what's the ultimate outcome of this dollar invested, could be returned in a single sentence, an essay, graphical data, a spreadsheet, visualization, a graph. The possibilities are endless, right? I mean, it'll probably be delivered by someone who looks exactly like us, right? That we can have a conversation with. So I think there's huge opportunity there. And the biggest thing is that it's work that we don't want to do, right? We would love to do it, but our patience and diligence towards revisiting our decisions to understand whether they had the intended consequences or not, or to what degree they, the return on investment was manifested. There's very few domains where that is adequately rewarded to the point where we will invest in actually doing it right. I mean, they're pretty good at it in hedge funds. They're pretty good at it in, certain domains where the data is simplified to a sufficient degree. But when we're talking about customer sentiment and we're talking about interconnected product catalogs and investments in technical debt repayment, like that's very, very complicated. So I have very high hopes for our ability to leverage AI for that sort of stuff.
Good. When we talk about value stream, so we were talking now about the contribution of AI, but also an important thing of value stream management is governance over value streams. What is your experience in that, or is there one model in terms of governance that could really suit the value stream management?
This is a good question. I think it's a complex question. First of all, I mean, let's talk about the definition of governance and make sure
Yeah.
that I have it correctly. You know, I
Yeah.
think about governance as how do we know we're doing the right thing, right? And that involves, you know, norms, standards, roles and responsibilities, accountability, measurement, and so I think that the more we, and this gets back to the AI question as well, the more your work is kind of structured in these defined and to what degree they can be consistent flows of activity, the more you can understand the effects of governance policy, you can more clearly understand the, you know, the value of specific operating models and the impact of approvals and reviews and things that are very central to governance, right? Making sure that the right things are happening. Sometimes these governance activities outweigh the value that's being produced by the value stream. You know, you spend more time trying to figure out whether this is something up to your standard downstream by doing all these checks and balances and validations and approvals and reviews, and upstream nobody actually asked if it was, you know, connected to a customer demand. And so, you know, the more you can tighten that feedback loop, and the more, you know, if your work is structured in value streams, you have a structure that AI can actually leverage to judge your governance, you know, the effectiveness of your governance and the efficiency of your governance, and show you where constraints are manifesting, or where you're performing actions that have no impact on the outcome. Or, you know, maybe unintended impacts on the outcome. So I see value streams as kind of a structure that can be used as a foundation for effective governance. You know, give you something to, let's say, layer governance on top of, for the purpose of ensuring that it's doing its job, it's doing what you expect, but that you can actually understand its ultimate impact on the outcome, the customer outcome. You know, if you don't have a value stream, it's very easy to come up with a checklist of things that you want to do and say, you know, we need to get these things done. But a value stream shows you where those checks and balances are happening, and it can show you the impact of each of them and the ultimate impact on quality, value added time, and the ultimate delivery downstream. So I think, you know, value stream management and the structure of the value stream is one of the most important aspects of governance that I've ever seen. Without it, I think you have a grocery list. You know, you have a challenge to attribute your governance to its ultimate impact.
That's also a good thing to explore. Let me ask you another question related to this governance topic. You know, governance is as at the difference of individuals that manage. You govern with a group of people. Governance, it's a matter of group. It's not a matter of individuals. The problem of governance is, and in value stream, you collaborate. So you have different people from different organization, internal, external organization, that should collaborate. That's what you do in a value stream.
Right.
And it means that in some cases you have customers, suppliers working as partners within a value stream.
but there can be some kind of conflicts of interest. You know, who can have the last word in terms of governance of the value stream for the value stream itself, for its evolution, for its improvement, for its performance? When you have within the value stream stakeholders who don't really share because of their suppliers and certain customers, they don't really have the same interest. How would you solve this situation? Maybe it's a wrong problem, but
no, I think it's a huge problem, you know, in large organizations and in organizations where you're hoping to foster collaboration. It's very easy to ignore ownership and the fact that somebody needs to break ties, somebody needs to own the outcome. Because if two people own it, that level of uncertainty, you know, this is like quantum states or, you know, Schrodinger's cat, right? You need certainty to drive action. You need the buck to stop with someone. Somebody needs to be the person who says, this is the thing. Until we have a better option, this is what we're doing. Or, you know, faced with a hard decision, we're choosing X. And so what I like for this is the model that, you know, Amazon calls single-threaded ownership. And it's essentially that one person is responsible for the entire mechanism. They call it a mechanism, but you know, you could think of a mechanism as a value stream, the end-to-end delivery. And they map those onto products and services. You know, there's no difference really between a mechanism and a product or service, because how the thing is created is very important to the, you know, the outcome, right? It's very difficult to separate the two when you really think about it. And so having one person who is ultimately responsible for those decisions, and the fact that the outcome and the process are intertwined, means that you have a single person who has to understand the upstream and the downstream. They have to understand that everything that they want to do can't just be made into a demand for somebody else to execute on. They have to build the system to deliver that thing. And I think that's very productive, you know, and I think you can apply that to any context, right? There always has to be a single person who owns the ultimate mechanism of delivery. And the more you can connect the outcome with the process, the more easy it is to improve and operate and measure and attribute the outcomes to the actions and facilitate the feedback that it takes to improve that over time. Anything else, you have a separation where there's an inherent conflict, right? You will have manufactured an inherent conflict between the outcome and the actions, or the upstream and the downstream, or the internal and the external. So, you know, the Amazonian model, I think, is the one that I hold up as my benchmark for how this works, because not only is Amazon wildly successful and has been sustainably for, you know, over 2 decades, they're operating at, you know, a scale that no other company on earth really is operating at, with internal and external stakeholders, you know, across dozens of product lines. Like it's incredible what they're able to do with very, 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 very simple operating principles and models, right? They don't have hugely complicated governance structures because these simple things like single-threaded ownership and mechanisms, you know, teams separated by API interactions, these things like modularization, they work very, very well. So that's what I would say is my model for effective governance.
Definitely, I will look at Amazon not just to buy a product, but also Yes, thank you for that. That's very clear. And at the end of the day, we always come back to the same thing, you know, process as owner, service as owner, product as owner, value streams is owner. At the end of the day, it can be as simple as that. With you said that, you know, in terms of ownership. Okay, when we talk about ownership, we talk about value stream. Sometimes I see also the value management office and this kind of new organization concept. Okay, is it something theoretical? Is it something that, oh, just a second. Is it something that, I will cut. So once again, I will repeat what I wanted to ask. What is the adoption of value stream management in organization according to your experience?
I think we're still in very early days. I think that there is always a early instinct for certain organizations to kind of rebrand, to jump on the bandwagon of something. So we're seeing a lot of project management rebranded as value stream management, agile rebranded as value stream management, project teams, product teams being rebranded as value streams. And the challenge there is that ultimately, you know, isn't a step forward because it's a lateral step. You know, changing the name of something doesn't necessarily move you towards the destination you were heading. If you were effectively moving in the right direction, you wouldn't need to change the name of anything. You could learn new things and you can adapt. But there's a good reason why Amazon uses the term mechanism instead of value stream. You know, they have their own culture and they come up with principles and practices and ideas that work for them using their own talent. And I think organizations need to do the same all the time. You know, that you always need to be developing in your own context. And, you know, that's an ownership thing, right? Coming up with your own lexicon. You can use value streams, you know, like I think I'm a big fan of value streams as a term. And I've said this many times before, because value is a first-class citizen there, and stream is a first-class citizen there. I think you'd be hard-pressed to come up with a better term that allows those two things: the ultimate reason why you're in business, value, and how you're in business, flow, are right there in the term. You know, so I very much support folks adopting the term value stream, but you still have to put it in your context, right? And if you have something like a value management office, there's a big risk of that becoming an ivory tower, right? Just like a change advisory board or any other isolated body in an organization that's made a dependency, right? Governing from afar. And what I would like to see is that, you know, it's fine to have a value management office. It's fine to have, you know, any kind of office, but it should actually behave as a customer-centric value stream, producing value for the organization that could be pulled instead of pushed, right? This is all lean, classical lean stuff, but, you know, if you're going to make a value management office, what I would hope to see from that is a clear definition of value, a set of self-governance principles, tools and techniques, and advocacy for measuring the right things, enabling teams to measure value and attribute value to their activities so that the other value streams in the organization can pull from the value management office on demand instead of having them be a constraint or a dependency in the flow, right? So in a lot of organizations, I expect a value management office to be one of the stops early on in a value stream where they go and they have to meet with the value management office, or they have to issue a proposal, or they send them a document. The value management office says, this lines up with, our strategic objectives, or, they have a scoring mechanism or some other nonsense. And you just added, a dependency, you just added a delay, you just added another layer of governance that didn't need to be in the way, and it could have just enabled better flow and better outcomes if you made it a pull mechanism instead of a push, or instead of a stop on the path to production. So I don't have high hopes for something like value management office. I would love for someone to put together a proposal of what that operating model should look like, and I would wholly endorse something that kind of enabled rather than governed, in the classical sense that we're used to. But I fear it's going to be just another relabeled change advisory board or something like that.
Good. I think that this can be another discussion that we can have in another podcast, because I have a lot of idea on that topic. One of the thing I would say when you say that is I think that you're right. I mean, in any case, value management office should not look like a rebranding of project management office or service management office. We know that. On the other hand, when you are talking about, we were talking that in a value stream, we need to collaboration, and in an ideal, I would say an ideal world, or something that we could reach in terms of value streams, then we could define some like APIs between different parts of the organization working together, collaborating. And for instance, why not having a value management office, producing these APIs, maintaining this API as a catalog, and then you could consume them. You know what I mean? That could be a way, for instance. It's just an idea, of course. But instead of asking them for authorizing things or for giving their approval on something, they would be like a service provider within the value stream. You know what I mean? Because that's the main challenge you have. We have a lot of gray areas in value stream, a lot of gray areas related to the collaboration between different departments. Just imagine the onboarding of new customers or new users. You can't have more gray area than this one, which is very easy to solve, but very difficult to implement, because it's about culture, it's about collaboration, and so on. And in service management, there were a lot of attempts, like, the operational level agreement. This bright idea of it doesn't work. And it doesn't work not because it's a bad idea. It doesn't work just because of people. Because they don't want, we would work together in the same office, Steve, okay? And we know 10 years together. I am in the service desk, you are a developer. And suddenly we say, our bosses agree that when I send you a ticket, we agree that you have 4 hours to send me a fix. And you say, David, we are working together, we go for lunch together, and you say, I will do my best. Or I will have a look, but I have other, and we talk like that. And all that seems very artificial to people, this operational level agreement. You know what I mean? And that can be the same idea of having some APIs or some gray zone managed by this kind of agreement. Doesn't matter if your agreement is an API. API is an agreement, but it's a technical agreement, or an agreement like, it's about human beings. So for instance, when we talk about this value management office, they should be there to be sure that we can maybe influence or change a little bit the behaviors of people for them to adopt maybe this API. You know what I mean? Maybe it's an ideal situation, but I see that's a big challenge, this. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we're starting to wake up to as an industry is this idea of constraints, right? And incentives are a form of this, right? Anything that gets in the way, friction, these operational demands and restrictions they have to be very carefully considered, right? And they can't get in the way of something that's already working, as long as the situation that you're talking about, it could be locally maximized by these two individuals, right, who have this prior relationship that's acting as a protocol, right? It's acting as, a highly effective communication bus, their relationship, the trust that they have with each other. They speak a common language. That doesn't actually scale, right? Take any other two people, or take those two people and pair them up with any other two, and you have maybe nothing, maybe worse than nothing, right? Maybe you have conflict. And so I sympathize with the effort of establishing these common protocols, what you call in networking a spanning layer, which is something that I'm just learning about. But it really is important to establish these common communication methods and standards so that that the right type of collaboration is happening, or that effective and efficient collaboration is happening. But to your point, this can't interfere with the highly effective activities that you're doing right now, right? I mean, if it's a step backwards, it's going to be really difficult to implement, because those people that it's working well for, the current state is working well for, they're already effective and efficient. They're the people you can't afford to anger, right? You really don't. You want those people on your side. You want to raise the tide to get the boats who are performing below par up to par. But if you're just cutting off the top, and you're just implementing restrictions on the people who are highly effective in the current state, that's just a situation that we know will fail, right? Because you need those people the most, right? You need to bring those people along, because they can be, if they're highly effective, they can be highly effective working in the wrong direction just as easily, or highly effective somewhere else, and you might easily lose them.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Okay, my last question to you. You are very active in the value stream management space, and especially within a community, if we can say it this way, called the Value Stream Management Consortium. It looks like a very huge organization. Can you tell me or tell us more about this Value Stream Management Consortium?
Yeah, well, I think that it looks much bigger than it is, because there's the largest vendors in the space are participants, and but I think the reality is far from that. It's very much a community of enthusiasts and early adopters and pioneers, and folks who are curious about the space. And I hope it doesn't give off an intimidating aura, because it really is about sharing, learning, and questions and ideas in developing this space, which I think is still very early, right? It's still very early. Value stream management is not young, right? And value streams are not new, but they're new in a lot of contexts, and they're new for a lot of people. So the goal inside the Value Stream Management Consortium is really to make an accessible, friendly community for folks to come in with whatever knowledge they have, whatever context they have, and learn, but also contribute to all these things that we need to figure out. Generate these ideas about value management offices and value streams and value stream management and the application of AI and everything that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Okay, where can we, how we can get in touch with you? What is the best way to get in touch with you, and for us to get your very valuable knowledge?
Oh, I appreciate that. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I find that LinkedIn has a lot of really interesting conversations happening because there's a lot of lean folks, a lot of agile folks, a lot of manufacturing folks, a lot of systems thinkers. There's this rich community of folks from very, very different disciplines weighing in on these common discussions about value streams and flow and everything in the domain. So I enjoy spending a lot of time there. That's where you could find, you can find me and you can find my latest thoughts and questions and ideas. I try to put everything that I think about out there for people to comment on and reply to, and I join a lot of discussions, sometimes even arguments, but all in service of kind of answering these questions and developing this knowledge in public, because I really enjoy hearing other people's perspectives and trying to create answers for a lot of these questions that we have.
Okay, good. Thank you very much once again for being my guest today, and I wish you all the best. We are at the beginning of the year, so I hope that you will have a tremendous year and years after this one. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it. I had a blast.
Thank you.